Thank you.
I'll go out and verify that. Sound is good.
Thanks, Jason.
Which one are you up to now?
Can you tell where you are going? Can you tell from there, is it going, or did I need to wait till he was coming back?
It's going, he was testing the volume to make sure.
Oh, okay, okay.
So go ahead.
So we'll call this meeting to order at 6:02, I think is what I've got, 6:01 by my computer. If you would, please take a roll call for us.
Bruce Belargin.
Here.
Katie Therms.
Here.
Marie Kolbe.
Here.
Bob Gunther.
Here.
Courtney Kirkowski. Not here. Catherine Cranston.
Here.
And Lori Belargin.
Here. Thank you. Together we engage, educate, and empower all learners, bridging their passions to pathways to create successful futures and positively contribute to our local and global communities. We're on to the agenda item 3, public comment. I did not get any red cards, so I'm sorry if, okay. Anything? All right, we're gonna roll right into item 4 on there, curriculum instruction and assessment presentation by Trish. Yay, right on.
Jody, do you mind clicking into the presentation? Oh, I thought, sorry.
That's what
Oh,
Jason
look
told me
at
to
you.
do it.
Look
There
at
you
you.
go. Perfect. And then I'll get you.
Yay, on screen.
Perfect. We good, Jason? Yep.
Quick.
I can do nothing. All right. Thank you, sir.
Okay, it's
Appreciate
still
that.
showing us there. There, did it. Yay.
We good?
Yay.
All right. Well, thanks for having me. I get to be one of the first ones out of the chute. George was first, though, I have to say. So I'm following George's presentation. Curriculum instruction and assessment carries a lot of different pots that we kind of monitor and plan for as we go year to year. Some of it is discretionary, some of it is not. We are largely funded through many grants, both at the federal and state level, and those vary from year to year. So we're going to get into a few of those. There we go. So my oversight of my department includes, of course, curriculum instruction and assessment. So all things, and I'll go into detail in just a second, federal, state, and local grants. We also oversee the College Now and the Early College Credit Program. That's the ECCP. That used to be called Youth Options. We have now transitioned to new names and new requirements. IT also falls underneath my department. I work very closely with Jason and Matt and Aaron. It's a pretty fun place to be. And we also monitor substitute costs because professional development relies on some substitutes, and if we don't have the money, we don't do that. If we don't have the subs, we don't do that. So it varies. But these are some of the pots that I oversee. So starting with the curriculum instruction and assessment pot, most of those dollars are in resources and instructional staff training. Here are some of the plans. You can see that this year we wrapped up social studies grades 6 through 8, getting new materials to align with the high school social studies materials, trying to work cohesively 6-12. Science K-5, that was over a 2-year period because we just finished Science 6-12. Science 5-12, science is an expensive resource because of the equipment and the training that goes along with that. So that took a 2-year cycle to get that to go through, and we've now just finished working with FOSS in grades 2 through 5. We have mystery science in K through 2, up the line. So this year we've been working largely on looking at our math resources. We know that having high quality instructional materials, it is a must. It actually is kind of an equalizer between a brand new teacher and a veteran teacher. They show that given high quality instructional materials that are highly aligned and rigorous, connected and aligned to the standards, really do help be more of an equalizer when you're talking about bringing new staff into a district. So we've been working really hard for the last couple of years looking at essential standards, and now this year actually going through and vetting different resources. Just Friday we had 2 presentations for the high school crew and middle school crew, some that they're looking at the same and some different based on how they were vetted by an outside company saying that they are rigorous, they're relevant, they're aligned, and they have high usability. We're also going to start, so next year, most of my budget money, so wrapping up this year and moving to next year over a 2-year cycle. Again, not inexpensive. So that will take most of my discretionary funds based on the need. We look at our data, we look at where the standards are, we look at what our current resources are, and we move forward.
What's the timeline on the loop? Typically?
You know, loops are kind of a thing of a past.
Okay.
They are really nice when you're working on budgets, but the way the DPI rolled out the new standards saying, hey, every content area, here's all your new standards. It really then comes down to understanding the standards, understanding how are we addressing the standards, how are our kids faring against those standards, and then how are our resources aligned to those standards. So math was the next one that we really needed to look at. We brought on Eureka years ago, and it was not very well received. It's not very traditional. It's highly aligned. It's very rigorous, but the usability is a little bit in question. K-5, it passes through all the gateways, and it's a beautiful resource, and we're seeing great headway. We're also seeing great gains in our middle school, and it passes through all the gateways. The usability, though, is a little bit, it's just very not traditional. So it did pass all of the ed reports, checkboxes, and gateways, but we are going to look at a 6-12 adoption to align all of our work. So typically, you know, we used to be on a 6-7 year cycle. That's how I buy resources, is 6 years, 7 years, depending on what they'll give us. It's not cheaper to buy just textbooks or just buy online. They come as a package. There's no, if you say we're not interested in the online, they say same price, or we're not interested, same price. So in the old days, you know, not so old days, where we used to say, wow, when we go online, we're going to save all this money, untrue. They just get you on a different side of that. So secondary ELA, so grade 6-12 ELA, English Language Arts, really has not had a complete overhaul in a very long time. We have a lot of teacher-made materials, a lot of wonderful literature that we've purchased. We've purchased Kindles. We've got amazing instructional practices and instructional leadership there. Both Kristen Flater, who heads up our middle school ELA team, and Corey Lindenberg, who heads up our high school. But it is really time to kind of look at, do they all have, especially now that we have a brand new high school ELA team. I mean, Corey is our one and only. The rest brand new, eager, fabulous, but do they have high quality instructional materials to help support student learning and growth? So we're going to start investigating that. That is the focus as we move into next year.
K-12?
6-12.
Just secondary.
Secondary. Mm-hmm. The way the standards are written, K-5, they're really by grade level. And then they start to do some kind of different groupings as we get 6-12, a totally different kind of mindset. So when you look at ed reports, which is a wonderful vetting tool, we could do it on our own. Achieve, a website called Achieve, an organization, has a 46-page document, a 54-page document you can go through. We did that when we did the elementary ELA, but someone else is doing that now, so this is good. So they're doing that work with teachers and kind of saying, here's how they look with rigor, here's how they look with alignment, and so on. So we're going to leave, they just did Journeys, K-5. 6-12 is our next one to just kind of start to investigate and explore. Also out of this pot comes our professional development days. So when we do any of the work connected to the strategic plan, our data digs in the summer, when we're digging into our data and setting our goals, any CISA sponsored trainings. So anytime we send someone to CISA, all the associated costs would come out of my budget, primarily out of my budget. Ed Camp is just one example of a small project that comes out of my budget. We get reimbursed. That's a very inexpensive project because we pay it all out and then we bill the other districts and they pay it back. So those are some of the PD things that are also included in this pot. I also carry the district and the building specific interventions. So if we look at a new intervention, like Go Math that we just brought on, I have budget that I look at to see if we are capable of funding those things. Project Lead the Way, there's a lot of expenses that come with Project Lead the Way. We write a lot of grants to try to support Project Lead the Way. It's a wonderful program. I watch over that budget. Virtual ed assessment such as FastBridge, EduClimber, that all comes out of my budget as well.
So interventions, you're not talking special ed, you're just talking interventions for RTI.
Correct.
If someone wants aerobics or someone wants reads naturally, you pay for the license.
The Sunday system, right.
Out of yours, got it.
Right. I have one specific for each building, to kind of look at where the needs are, and then I have a district-wide one, because as you know, some things go more district, some are very
License-based.
Yep. Yep. Oh, why do I think this is working every time? Here we go. Grants largely fund much of my budget, so I oversee ESSA. ESSA carries all the titles, Title I, just for your information, we use primarily to fund our Title I teachers. This last year, Title I was cut by approximately 50%. That was a big hit. It is based on county poverty, and St. Croix County poverty is doing okay, I guess, because they took away 50% of our money. Other areas didn't see that great of a reduction. We did. Title II is professional development money. There's not a lot sitting there, but it does give us dollars that must be spent on professional development of our teachers. So these are things I don't have a lot of play with. They're very specific in how they're to be used. Title III is a very, very, very small piece that actually Abby signs over to CISA so that they can support us. It is so small that we put it all together to just get support and additional training. Title IV is brand new this last year. It is specific as well. It has to do with the wellness of our students. It has to do with school safety and security. It has to do with technology training, or specific content area. So we have used that to really pump up our math instructional practices. Our wellness, kind of our mindfulness pieces come out of here, restorative practice pieces come out of here, as well as our technology sending people to Slate, which ran like our Ed Tech Day. That all comes out of there. Carl Perkins is CTE, Career and Technical Education Program. We oversee that budget. That money is specific for our CTE teachers related to career development. At the state level, we have, for the last couple of years, gone together with St. Croix Central and New Richmond and proposed a peer mentor grant. We have been successful in acquiring that for the last 2 years. They've now changed requirements for next year, so we'll see. It is not up yet. That peer mentor grant helps fund our mentors, which we are required by DPI to have for our initial educators. It also, we do after-school training that helps me with some of the costs there. Educator effectiveness, we use My Learning Plan or Frontline. That money is reimbursed from the state through an educator effectiveness grant. So they will give us back our money to use the platform to collect our evidence and help train our teachers. DOJ, you've been hearing a lot about the DOJ safety grant. There's a large professional development component and a large IT component, such as cameras, security cameras, and so on. So those pieces are all in my budget. The WEDC Fab Lab that Eric co-wrote with Brandon and Shannon, those components are pieces that we oversee as well. And then local grants as well, such as Anne Marie, that helps fund us every year for our STEM initiatives and others. Tuitions and partnerships. All of our college and the schools are dual credit classes. We oversee and watch that budget. Some of them we have choice on, some of them we do not, and you've heard this in the past. We have now capped our college and the schools classes for a while because that's dollars. So until some monies get shifted around, we're at our max right there. We brought on a writing class this last year, correct? And so we monitor those dollars to make sure that we can still are capable of funding them. The other dual enrollment pieces is ECCP and then Start College Now, and those are those ones that you approve twice a year that we're state mandated to offer those, and they're great opportunities for our students. IT, the big IT bucket, that's a big one. Largely 4 pockets there: hardware, software renewals, different projects we're doing, and then again, grant management. So projects for this year that I talked about last year, but very specifically now, we have been going through staff device replacement cycle. So all the teachers having a device, you having devices. They were at the end of life. So we ended up going from a capital lease to putting money in the budget, which saved us a lot of money because we ended up buying Chromebooks. Chromebooks are something we're going to see rolling out to our students, and they already do use. So I put them in the hands of our instructors so they really become familiar with how to use that device. Our old laptops, though, did not go to waste. They are now connected to our smart boards, a stable environment. They have plenty of power to run our smart boards video and other things through there. So we just transferred those over. We did online registration this year, moving all of our registration for our new families to Somerset online. That was a big shift and continues to be. So we're finding ways to support that across campus, including having additional computers in the offices as well as here. Tasia helping walk through people. We just had another family today come in and help them get through there. Part of that also means that all of our families will kind of re-register every year. so that we know where they are and what they're doing. We have current information about medicines and those things, all online. We did have end of life and end of support for our wireless controllers, our server hardware, emergency backup. This is all that infrastructure stuff, as well as our security cameras from the first phase of the DOJ grant. So we are replacing 44 cameras with some pretty sweet stuff. That takes a while because that also takes cabling and so on. Chromebooks. We have another grant that just came out from Wisconsin DPI. It is based on the number of freshmen that we have each year. So based on the number of freshmen, that's the only thing that matters. It doesn't matter where we put this, but if we have 100 freshmen, for example, they will give us $125 per freshman to be used for IT devices, trying to move people to a one-to-one environment, or professional development connected to those, so you're more efficient in the use of them. So this is year one. We are using those monies to replace our Lenovo Chromebooks, which are falling apart. So we have one band of Chromebooks that went through that somehow, I don't know how, but when we get them back, there's keys missing, damage to that, you know how this is, right? So the quicker we can get to more of a one-to-one where our students are responsible for their own device, I think we will have less of that. But until that time, we are trying to make sure our devices are sturdy and that they are being managed the way they are intended to be. We've also moved to an app called ClassLink. It's a service to support Chromebooks so that kids can change their own passwords, manage some of their entrance and there goes my words. Using of many of our programs right through one kind of desktop that pops up when you log in. Those have been some big projects. Our smart boards and our projectors, we keep projectors on hand, fairly inexpensive to replace as they get to end of life. When the smart boards go, that's a much bigger expense. And so what we do when the whole shebang goes out, we are trying to replace them with interactive TVs. Because the TV doesn't require this, they don't get dim, they have a much longer life, much better clarity, kids can see them from multiple angles. Just much more stable device.
And are those touch controlled also? Mm-hmm. And how large do they get?
They can get very large, but there are recommendations based on the size of the room. So based on the size of the room, there's a different diagonal that you purchase. We currently have 3. One is in the library at the high school. You may see that. We have that on a cart because that one can actually go from this, from vertical to horizontal. So multiple people, that's another cool thing. Multiple students can be touching and doing work at the same time, where this is a one-point touch. It's a very cool device, but they're more expensive. So we wait until this goes, and then we're just slowly, it would be nice to do that at a little more bigger cycle.
Is it still cheaper than buying another whiteboard?
I think I have the cost on the next screen, actually. I'll show you. Okay. And then renewals and maintenance. So we have lots of online pieces we maintain across our campus. I believe I have that here, Katie. Yeah, I do. So for next year, as we look to next year, there's a lot of variables up in the air, from referendum to what the state continues or discontinues. We have one big thing that's coming up. We've got a Blade Center that is at the end of life. We've deferred it to next year in order to do some other things this year. It's about $100,000. We have it in our budget, but we're kind of taking and giving. So we'll see how we go with that one. That is something that must occur, and it must come out of this pot of gold here. So we've also got some network switches that we need to replace so that they have some backups. Again, that all is infrastructure pieces. Chromebooks, we really want to increase our inventory. We really want to get to one-to-one. Our strategic plan pushes us that direction. Our need pushes at that direction. Some of the wonderful things going on at the high school, middle school in particular, some of the scheduling, flex scheduling we want to do in order to give kids real-time work. The snow days that we've been having would be awesome, that we could keep that learning going regardless if they're on campus or off. Lots of really wonderful reasons why we want to get there or partially get there. And we've got multiple plans for rolling that out, small scope as well as broad scope. We are going to be trying slowly to increase that inventory, taking what we have on campus, using those, and then matching some others. We're using some of the matching grant funds, but there is cost associated with implementation, because to do it right, we really have to make sure our teachers are ready, our parents are ready, our kids are ready and trained on how to care for a device that they will be completely responsible for. Here's that smart board piece. We replace as needed across. projectors themselves cost about $1,000. When the whole thing goes, the flat panel is $4,000, so it's 1 unit. These have been pretty durable. This has been the problem because they dim, and then students can't see them. I mean, it just gets like people are shutting every blind in the room, and it just gets to be ridiculous. So we're keeping them going. Our new Epson ones are a little bit better than the original ones we had installed, kind of case by case. And then, of course, big projects for next year include phase 2 of the DOJ grant, which is 56 more cameras around our entire campus. So I believe that's it. Welcome to my budget. Can I answer any questions?
How many cameras do we have up now?
Ooh. Anybody? Anybody?
Cameras, you say?
Mm-hmm.
Working?
Yeah.
We don't have a lot of working ones right now because we're in transition.
Are they any good anyway? I know the ones we
The
have.
new
you
ones
can
are.
Just see this
They're so-so.
figure.
Mm-hmm.
And these new ones you can actually recognize if it's a human being?
We have been doing some testing on them, and they
So
are
big for the company.
digital. Yeah. I could get that answer for you, but I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay.
We are having problems at all 3 of our buildings right now because we're transitioning out, and servers and wiring and.
Servers are
How long are we
dying.
gonna keep that information for? Yeah, okay.
Trish, can you tell us how much the total budget is?
I can tell you approximate numbers. So for example, this year, remember it fluctuates based on lots of different factors. My CIA budget is approximately $370,000. Now remember, some of these monies are been pumped up because of the grants that are coming in or because the money I'm getting from the camp, you know, those kinds of reimbursements that I get. So it's not all money that I get to choose, right? IT is approximately $440,000. That included the increase with DOJ funds plus the increase with our capital lease that we got rid of, and instead we just took that money that we put toward capital lease for over an extended period of time and put it into the budget to help with the Chromebook pieces. Youth options, we're at about 70.
That's up considerably, I think.
And again, there's reimbursement there too, Katie, because the WITC, those pieces, we get that money back. It's kind of give and take. So, that number by itself doesn't mean a whole lot until you understand what's going on behind there.
Thanks, Trish.
You bet. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me.
Thank you very much. All right, so we will move on to item 5, the strength and conditioning proposal by Trent. I'm asking if anyone would recommend the school board approve the strength and conditioning. May I have a motion for that? Or are we looking to just do the recommendation and get the approval so the motion goes to the general meeting?
Well, we put it on for approval here, but I think we need some discussion.
Yeah, so I'll make a motion.
All
I'll
right.
second that.
Thank you, Bruce. Thank you, Catherine.
I like Mark's option. I think they told us when we go through with, they can pay for it, I think out of, you have it paid for this year, and then.
We have the program itself paid for, but the staffing of the person from EVO, that's where we have to long-term figure out how we would pay for that part of it. We have a good, I'd say, jumpstart on how we would pay for a large percentage of it. It's just that remaining piece of how we would finalize and cover that.
But you can make it through the rest of this school year? Okay.
Yeah,
And
because
then-
just, I don't know, if I sent it out to administration, but what I sent out to the board was, concern is first of all, we don't want to raise activity fees. That's the last thing you want to do. But we don't have the budget to take it on right now. So the suggestion was approve the program for the remainder of this year because you have the money to take care of it this year. But then wait till the referendum passes to see if it's a budgeted item out of general fund or if activity fees need to go up. So if referendum doesn't pass, we're going to be looking at a lot of different things as far as dollars and what have you, but that wouldn't be something that we probably wouldn't be able to take out of the general fund, so you'd probably raise activity fees. However, if the referendum passes, it might be just a budgeted item, and we can keep fees flat. So that's what I think I conveyed to the board.
So I have a question on that. If it's going to be used as part of the curriculum, so not more across the board, as, I want to be sure I'm understanding right. My thought, if it's used in curriculum, would be across the board. So instead of my playing square dance in my days, we'd get some of this in the classes, in the FIED classes. If that's the case, then it would fall under a different budget piece.
Well, we'd have, you know, you could move it into curriculum, but then you'd have to increase the curriculum budget to cover it.
Mhm.
But wherever in the past, you got the money to do it, which would not be a bad thing because it's internal in the school.
'Cause
It's
if
not
we
just
keep it-
athletics.
Yeah, if we keep it to it's just athletics, it's really not benefiting or showing its benefits to the majority of the people. So
And I think we want to lean to the way it's going to be
Most
more
beneficial.
building spread for all the kids
I think
to
so, too.
access and take into classes. And
I think so too.
And this trainer would train the coaches as well, right? So I think in my head, I think long-term, we should not be relying on donations to cover it, you know what I mean? Because I think there was $1,000 donation from somebody that was gonna cover part of the expense, but it does seem part of the curriculum, Trish. So I was thinking your
And
budget,
professional development.
but that's if,
But, you know, if we lean that way though, we'd have to add, you know, increase that budget though. For,
right,
you know.
right, it wouldn't take it away from something else.
And is this a full-time staff person that we're talking, or just how many, what are we talking?
This person would come in four days a week for an hour before school, and then in the summer, up to 2.5 hours a day.
Okay, and what do you estimate that cost, annual cost to be?
That was the 10.
Wasn't it 10,000 I think you had on there?
Okay, I saw that, thank you. So, I'm still not sure we make a
So I
motion.
would like to make a motion.
Well, we've
that
got a
we-
motion, we
I
already
think.
have a motion.
All right,
So are you amending it?
I would like to amend the motion to.
She's suggesting an amendment, that's where we're at here.
I am making a motion to amend the current motion so that we approve the continued use of the strength and conditioning proposal for the rest of the 18-19 school year, being funded through the donations and fundraising that you have already completed, and that we bring back the portion for 2019-20 in April or May.
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 That's what words in your mouth.
Okay.
So would someone second my amendment?
A second.
Thank you.
All right, so then we'd all have to vote on it to be sure that that's how the rest of us feel too.
Can I
So
ask
if-
Trent
Yes.
first? Is that
I think
okay, or?
I think it casts a big shadow of doubt as to
I do too.
where do we go in April or May then? You know what I mean? Like, if the referendum passes, it sounds like there's more budget money to go around, and if not, then we're having to raise fees later on. But what happens for next year? It just leaves a lot of uncertainty where we can get this thing going and know that we're in place and we're going. And when we look at the fees, you know, compared to the rest of the conference, even if we were to raise it $20, we would be third in the conference. And knowing what other schools are doing within their programs for strength and conditioning and what they're charging their kids to do it, you know, the most of an impact that this would have on one of our kids would be $60 in the course of a year, when some neighboring districts are charging over $200 for similar programming.
So we were only talking about doing the portion of the funding that is already in place that would apply to the increased fees to students. That's what we're talking about. So if we pass a referendum, we feel like well, at least I feel like we might have the capacity to cover that without doing that. If the referendum doesn't pass, then you go back to your increased fees. Does that?
I don't think we're saying no to next year's. I mean, I think it's a good program. I
You're
think we're all in
saying-
support of the program. I think we're
going
holding
right
on
now,
the.
just moving forward, how we pay for that moving
Yeah.
forward is gonna hinge on where we're at the end of the school year.
Right.
It might be from raising activity fees, it might be if we have an influx in budget.
Right.
Because you wouldn't raise activity fees until next school year anyway, would
Right,
you?
that won't start until 18.
So we don't really have to make that decision until May.
So if I'm understanding correctly, Lori and Katie are suggesting an amendment to bring it back in May. And I would have to take a vote by all of us here as to whether or not we want to accept that amendment. Otherwise, the motion made by Bruce and Catherine to recommend the school board approve the strength and conditioning program as it is and not detailing out how it will be funded would stand. So I'm going to first take a vote on accepting the amendment made by Katie and Lori.
Is that the procedure that we take?
It is the procedure that's noted here in the Roberts Rules. Yeah, my old school had it where the motion on the table needed to fail first. But when we look at the attached Roberts Rules up here, and I did ask to have Roberts Rules attached to each agenda, that verbiage actually says there's a friendly amendment. We're not, when someone proposes an amendment, we all have a voice in it. It's no longer just yours and mine because we made the motion or whoever made the motion. So that's why we're going to this new little layout. It isn't new, it's what is recommended, and I checked out a couple of different websites, and they do suggest if you're gonna do the amendments, this is how they're doing it now. Old school did not. So, I hope that.
Can we restate the motion
Yeah.
since it was?
The amendment? The
Yes.
amendment is to recommend the school board approve the continued use of the strength and conditioning program for the rest of this year, funded by the monies that you have in the, and you have this on one of your slides. Through athletic teams, Spartan 300, and a donor. And then bring this back again in May to look at the funding for 1920, so that part of this funding can come out of the curriculum budget. We have 3 classes a day, every day. Yeah, that's my motion.
And I just want to make sure it was the strength and conditioning program as presented, because it's this one and not with EFS or what they're currently doing.
So we have 2 different motions that we need to consider right now. My concern is when we get into the message that we're sending, when we say we'll revisit this in May, there's a big question that goes up as, okay, are we gonna keep the program or are we not gonna keep the program? So I think it's clearer, the support for it, if we don't put that caveat of May in there. But I'm only one voice. That's my opinion on it. So if anyone else has thoughts on it?
Trent, can I ask you your concerns on the amended motion? If you're comfortable answering that, I don't want to put you
I
on the
feel
spot.
more confident moving forward knowing that we have a plan that would, I felt confident with the plan that we presented with raising the activity fee to make up for the difference with it. Based on the research that I did, we belonged to a conference and we looked around and checked neighboring districts to see what they're offering as well. And I don't think what we're doing is unreasonable based on parent feedback that I got either. But at the end of the day, I know this, each of the last 2 weeks here, we've had just under 80 kids each morning in working out. We had a pretty distinguished alumni back over the last couple of days also, and they were blown away by the support that we have from kids. Our biggest challenge right now isn't getting kids in there and motivated to come in, it's having adults and coaches in there, which is another part of this, and we'll work on it, we'll get there, and it's a good position to be in.
Has the amount of 3-sport students, has that gone down significantly over the last, let's say, 5 years?
I would say as a whole, as a society, yeah. I would say the amount that we have actually playing 3 sports wouldn't be as what it used to be.
Right.
Well, personally, I think we're all in support of this going forward, raising fees or not raising fees. I think we just have an ulterior way to pay for it that I don't think raising fees right now is if we'll raise fees next fall if we need to. But I think for now,
We don't have to decide on that.
Right.
yeah,
what you're
let's
saying.
hold tight. And then,
That's just the same point I was gonna make. The commitment to the program, I believe, is here.
Correct.
It's just, there's maybe some funding options that would be more advantageous at the time. Because
But I
ultimately, I
think-
think the general concern is we wanna keep activity fees down.
And I think that was in his presentation of it, as presented, so I'm not understanding why we need to make that amendment, why we want to delineate that in the motion. Why do you want that specific wording in the
I just
motion?
want, the only part of the motion I don't want in is the raising activity fees right now. That's what I
Me
don't
too.
want.
Me too.
So however that gets,
And that's why the amendment is to support the implementation of the program as it is taking place currently, to support that. And the funding of it for this school year, 18-19. But to bring back in May the funding of it for 19-20.
So does that make sense to you in giving down the motion?
Can you help me understand what you mean by currently is, so we're not,
We currently
Taking-
already are operating this program in the school, and it's being paid for through these funds that Trent and Bruce put on this PowerPoint presentation without the $6,000 because it hasn't been a whole school year. And Bruce told me that they have the funds in place to continue for this school year as it is. That the increase in funds are moving forward in 19-20. So I would like to wait to make that decision
On how it will be funded,
on how it will be funded.
but
To
not
see
on
if
the
we could
program
possibly fund it.
itself.
But not the support of the program. I think it's a great program. I was there this morning at
So-
6:45, and there were over 70 kids
So
in the school
I'm-
on a Monday morning.
I'm confused then on what our recommendation is actually.
there's no school.
Are we saying, I'm not clear on what we're asking for here with this. Are we saying we're going to approve the program, and then when it gets to budget time, then you start discussing how you're gonna fund it? Or does it need to be included in this motion for support of the program? Do you believe it needs to be in there?
It does.
I do, because the way it's worded in this program, it says that we're gonna raise athletic fees, and I don't wanna do that yet. I don't wanna do that if we don't have to. I wanna wait.
So if the word is changed to may, would you be more comfortable with that as presented?
I
In his
understand.
presentation. If that's the main issue, you don't wanna confirm, and I heard 3 of you say that, in changing what he has presented from we will raise them to we may raise them, would you be comfortable with that?
I would like to amend the motion to state
Hold on.
Okay, cause she needs to get this.
that we support the implementation of the strength and conditioning program.
Okay, cause you've already changed it now 3 times, Lori, so.
Can I read what I've typed?
Yes.
If that's not what you meant, then we can change it?
Yes.
Okay. Lori suggests motion to amend the current motion to approve continued use of strength program implementation for the rest of this year, 18-19, funded by the monies you currently have in place, and then bring this back again in May for discussion on funding in 2019-20.
That sounds clear to me. Marie, does it sound
Yeah,
clear to you?
it's just different than what you were saying there again, and I wanted
didn't type
the
it.
same motion.
And I can change it, I just,
Nope, I'm glad you read it
Okay.
back to us.
Can
Is
you
that,
put
is
in-
that seconded by Katie?
and I have second,
by
Katie.
Yep.
Can you put in strength and conditioning program?
Approve continued use of strength and conditioning. Okay.
Thank you.
So that's their amendment. I would like to take a vote on if all of, or the majority is in favor of that amendment. Bruce?
Yes.
Katie?
Yes.
Myself, no.
yes.
Catherine?
No.
Lori?
Yes.
Okay, so the amendment takes effect.
That amends the main motion.
Yes, so then Lori's motion is now on the table, and this is where I'm confused, because Catherine was on that first motion, she's not supporting the amendment, and that's why I would go back to the old style, where you defeat a motion first, because now it's kind of unclear. Does Catherine stay on the motion? Do you wanna stay on the
Yes.
motion? Does she wanna,
She can
Withdraw
vote
her
however
support
she'd
on it.
like.
it's whatever you
We
decide.
haven't voted.
We voted on the amendment.
That's right,
so
but
now we're
it's
gonna vote on the
Catherine's,
motion.
because you're amending the motion, does it become the 2 of yours, or does it stay as Bruce and Catherine's motion? That one was not addressed.
I was
And-
hoping this was gonna happen.
Yeah, that's why I killed the first motion instead of doing this.
It
But-
doesn't matter.
It does matter in the records.
Your
So-
motion is now amended.
Correct, and Catherine seconded it, so if she no longer wants to carry the second, she could withdraw that support.
Okay,
So, as it stands,
The motion is already on the table and seconded. It
correct,
was amended.
and
Now we just
amended,
vote on it.
so now we just vote on it as amended.
yep. I'm asking Catherine if she wants to keep it.
That's fine.
Okay, so, now we're voting on the amended motion made by Bruce and Catherine, amended by Lori and Katie. Katie,
Yes.
myself,
I have no idea
No.
what we're
do you
even-
support the amended motion?
I thought I already did.
You were supporting their amendment to the motion, then you have to go back and actually clarify the motion.
Okay,
So I'm assuming you say
I will say yes.
Catherine,
No.
Lori,
Yes.
them, and
Bruce,
Bruce, I'm
yes.
sorry. So the motion passes 4-2. And thank you, Brent, for all your work. I hope you know and can determine from that motion that we are in support of it, that it is the funding of it that is in question.
Sure.
I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah, looking right at you, I apologize. All right, so if
Marie,
there's no more on that.
Can I clarify?
Sure you can.
So first amendment passes 4-2,
Correct.
and then
now-
motion
So we'll
passes
stick
4-2. Okay,
Correct.
just,
Yes,
that's new.
Yep,
All
it
right.
is new. It is.
And do I have a motion on the first part from Bruce and a second by Catherine? Do I
And
just
that's-
leave that, or do I,
Amended by Lori
Okay.
and Katie.
okay,
And personally, I'd rather go back to the old way. You kill one motion and then bring up a second motion. It's clearer. So we'll move into the handbook discussion by Mark.
Yeah, real brief, as my note pointed out, we're just taking this in phases. A few weeks ago, you got a stricken out copy of the handbook with the formatting changes in it. Just to take a look at it, see if there was any issues with that. But if there isn't, we'll go ahead and take the strikeouts and make a formal copy of it for you to approve. Then the next phase is it goes back to the employee council, to all the different section groups to look at any possible changes.
So
As
you're
far
gonna
as-
make us a hard copy that we will be able to review
Right,
again.
yeah, well, you've had the stricken out copy, take a look
Yeah.
at what the changes are.
Yep.
Now we'll clean all that up and put it into a approval-ready copy.
Mhm.
And then it'll go back to these groups.
After the board approves it,
Right,
it'll go
to
back.
say, okay, you know what, can we do this, or that? And, kind of a,
When are you planning on changing it out, cleaning it up? Because I haven't had a chance to look through it yet.
well, we'd like to bring it back to the next meeting if possible.
And that's next Monday.
No, it's the 25th.
I have it on
isn't
mine as next Monday. Is it the 25th? I was surprised.
It's 25th, I had it on mine as 18th too, but it's the 25th, I believe.
it's posted as February 25th.
Great, good.
So
That's good news.
Which gives a couple weeks.
Yeah.
So the question is, can you leave the strikeouts on there and then just
Well, I think
put
you
the
already
clean
have
ones
that.
somewhere?
You should have that, just see if you do, and.
And I
if not-
haven't looked at them yet, so I'm wondering, are you gonna write over them, or will they be available?
I believe we can keep them.
Well, otherwise
That's all
you
I was
can
asking.
keep your copy. You can keep your own
We should
copy.
be, we'll make sure we keep them.
Two separate ones?
Well, we should be able to. Save as,
Are you okay with that? Otherwise, save your own.
okay.
I didn't go through the whole handbook, but there were some things that I noticed. In section 1.3, everything was in alphabetical order until you got to the last few. Can that be cleaned up?
Yeah, those are some of the things that they didn't wanna do those until if there's any other changes to that, because that's what has to, kind of a final tooth comb, another look over it, because we knew there were some of those pieces there.
So do you want people to be sending to you?
Yeah, well, that's why I kind of hoped along the way here, if there is any issues, just go ahead and shoot them to us. But, they've been, they know it inside and out now, and they do know there's some, just what Lori brought up, some of those type of pieces there that they just purposely didn't want to clean up until we wanted to make one final sweep through it.
So do we send them to you, or?
Well, I would
you
say send them to me and
Tasia?
copy Tasia, or send them to Tasia and copy me.
Okay.
So that makes sense to everyone? If you have some proposed changes, to send them to Dr. Bezick and Tasia?
Well, 1.35 has a title of child abuse reporting, but the entire verbiage is about technology resources.
So this is what you can send to him on a
Well, I'm
email?
thinking that something that big might have to do with
Do you recall
the
that?
formatting.
There's probably a shift in some formatting.
So do you want
Does
to
that ring a bell?
It doesn't, that's in the very first section.
1.3.5.
Without having it in front of me.
Okay.
So if you can send that in an email, Lori, to them?
That'd be best, just when, anything you see sent in, because of, you'll get 3 sets of eyes on it.
All right, so if you have changes to propose, please send them in an email, so he's got a record of that, and they have a record of that. Anything else on handbook discussion?
No, that's it, just wanted to kind of outline the process and that, and as soon as it's approved, then we'll get it in the hands of the different groups to take a look. And then that'll come back to the board with, hey, this group wants to recommend this change, and so we'll have some back and forth on that.
So it says discussion here. Is there anything else anyone here on the board has a question on? If not, then we're gonna move on to item 7. You'll send your questions that you pick up on it, please, to Dr. Bezick and to Tasia. On to inclement weather makeup days.
Sure. You know, obviously, that's been the last 2 weeks stressor is what we're gonna do with the weather makeup time. And there's 2 components of this. There's the student days, and there's also teacher contract days that we have to be concerned about also. And one we can deal with right now, the contract makeup days are something we're gonna have to wait for a little bit, because we can't, you know, we need to have, if we allow teacher makeup time and we have more inclement weather, we might have kids with no teachers because we used up their time. So we have to be cautious on that. So what we're recommending, you know, to the board on the makeup days is add, you know, we lost 5 days, so we want to add 5 minutes to the elementary, 10 minutes to the middle school, and the high school is okay. If we do that, plus make March 8th a student contact day, take the PD day away, and then June 7th, the half day at the end of the year, will create a plus of 2.5 days at the elementary, 1.7 at the middle school, and 1.5 at the high school, in case we have any other issues this year, because we still have another month and a half of questionable weather, and probably more than that if what happened last year in April. So we're creating a little bit of a bank there, which we get into May and we know we're not gonna have any more snow. We can probably give back we can go back to the original June 7th day, as far as half-day students, half-day workshop for the teachers. So again, that's our recommendation to, you know, patch up the rest of the year here. As I mentioned before, you know, you've got about 4.5 staff days that are on that aren't being fulfilled right now. You remember a couple years ago, you gave us 3 days for the strategic plan. Some years you've forgiven them. Some districts are pushing some of them off into next fall's workshop. I mean, there's a lot of different options, but we don't have to make that decision right now, because again, we have to wait and see how we get out of this with the kids' minutes first, before we allow any makeup time.
When would this add 5 minutes begin?
Well, I think we had it on the books for February 11th, today, and we did start today, yeah.
So this is mainly for our information, because the action has already been, I hope you've already implemented, and it doesn't say anything about
Yeah, that's how
discussion.
all the timing and everything is set with, it started today. And again, the only thing that parents are gonna notice is they might get home 5-10 minutes later on the bus ride. You know, again, some of these buildings have different amounts of time, and you know, the big driving factor at the elementary piece was we just can't have kids sitting on the bus. You know, because obviously they have the most time, because they're held to a lower hour standard. You know,
Is Wisconsin by student minutes or student days?
Minutes, and so we have, and again, the elementary is, I can't remember off the top of my head, what is it?
10:50.
10:50, and
That's a
the high
good
school,
question, though.
middle school is
It would make a difference.
11:53. 53 or 57. So there's two different, I mean, I can find.
I'm
it.
glad that you went to the longer days trying to address it sooner rather than later. I appreciate that. Did anyone have any other questions for him on that?
Yeah, would you say again what your plan is for June 7th?
Well, June 7th, right now, is a half-day staff, half-day student, and the staff.
No, it isn't.
Half-day staff.
It's half-day staff only. The student's
Or-
last
oh.
day is Thursday.
Okay, we would take that and make it a student day.
A whole student day?
Right, yeah, and then the half that the staff was gonna get would be somehow made up somewhere, so they didn't have to come. We're trying to avoid coming back on Monday.
Yep. And based on where we are right now with our inclement weather days, it's necessary to make June 7th student contact day for sure? Or
No,
is this
it's
something
not, it's
we're going
not,
to
it's
look
just,
at?
right. So,
Okay.
like I say, if we get into, say
Tomorrow.
facetiously,
Yeah, I
we
was
get into
gonna
May
say,
and there
we
won't be
work
any.
this tomorrow.
I came in
Thursday.
right now and it was started.
Yeah.
Just-
So June 7th is a possibility?
Right.
A
but we
strong
can-
possibility.
Well, look what happens if something happens tomorrow.
Yeah, that's why it's a strong possibility.
Yeah, so we got another month and a half of this,
Thank you.
you know,
Is that gonna be part of your message then, Mark, to the parents, just say, it's a possibility, but we'll tell you more later?
Yeah, and you know what, I don't wanna get too far out in front of this, because again, this week could cause us some more wrinkles, and I
Yeah.
just don't wanna keep sending out mixed messages.
Yeah.
But you
Of this.
already told the parents about March 8th, right?
Right,
Okay.
that's gonna be that's a given. right
So
there.
March 8th was a professional development day,
Correct.
and now it's gonna be a regular student contact day.
Correct.
Okay, I'm just
Yeah.
saying that out loud to Claire on the TV. And that should go out on Facebook and everything
We'll get-
ASAP.
Yeah, I just wanna make sure you guys understood it all first, and I put this out, I think, a week ago, and just wanna make sure we're having this conversation, so you know what our options are right now, so.
Does anyone else have any other questions for Dr. Bieseck on this?
You said teachers might have to have extra time?
Well, you've got 192 staff days that you're contracted with
Yeah.
them, and they've lost 5. We've allowed about a half a day makeup on some things over that 4-day week we had, or 4-day missing week. So we'd have to either get real creative, or the board would have to forgive those days, or, you know, you could tack them on the next week, you know.
There's a lot of creative ways.
There-
Let's just
there-
deal with that
there
when it
is,
comes.
and we just can't get there yet, because we don't know.
I was
I mean,
saying,
we've
Yeah.
done many, many, many
You have
different
to
things
log
over
hours
the
or
years.
whatever. then
Well, it's just that, you know, you
it's
can't have people making up
Go to
days now,
school.
and then all of a sudden we have
Well,
more
yeah, 3
student
months.
days than we have
Yeah.
teacher hours,
Yeah, 3 months.
teacher days, so.
Yeah, so
Good.
we could be in school until July.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So we'll move on then to item 8, to the 2019-2020 calendar. Wow, 2020.
Okay, you have that calendar in front of you, and, you know, my copy doesn't have we were waiting for the elementary conferences, and, my hard copy here doesn't have it on there, but again, it's kind of a rollover from this year. You've got 173, but plus those 2 summer school days, so 175 student days again, and 192 contract days. After our last discussion, we did survey the staff on a couple different things about splitting up workshop week at the beginning of the year over 2 weeks. Basically, it was no to that, so all workshop will be contained in that 1 week before students come. And then there'll be an 8-day break at holiday break. So there will not be a full 2 weeks there. And we factored in 2.5, basically, snow days into that calendar.
Not looking at this year's, the current right now, is this March 8th, is that the right before spring break?
No.
When is it?
No, that's the week before,
Oh.
Friday before.
So it wouldn't impact families who are leaving a day early or something
No.
for spring
No.
break?
And then they split those monthly PD days, split them between Mondays and Fridays to kind of make it more family friendly, to attach them onto vacations.
Do we have a calendar committee, or is it just a survey that goes out to staff and then who?
Well, it's been kind of done a little bit differently. I think this year is probably the most we've surveyed out in the last couple of years. I think basically it's been a rollover of what we've had of a calendar. And, you know, the things that have changed have been when ACT is and the makeup. you know, and where Christmas falls, you know, those are some determining factors on how to shuffle some days. You know, Tricia's done a lot of work on it. I don't know if there's anything you want to add to it.
The only thing I'd like the board to start just chewing on a little bit is, the strategic plan talks about starting the conversation in the community about year-round school. And people don't really understand what that is. When you say year-round, you go, that's, you know, like, but it really is taking the same number of teacher days and student days and just spreading them out, having longer breaks in between. And what we know about mental health of our staff, what we know about restorative practices, what we know about time for professional development, or time for remediation or enrichment. That is gaining a lot of energy right now in the area. We've got schools in our Middle Border Conference that are trying to get it going like sooner than later. We've got staff who every time I bring up calendar come to me with a year-round calendar proposal. People are very willing to have the conversation and start the dialogue. Some are ready to start. Some still don't have a clue, like, wait a minute. You know, there are some rules at DPI that you have to kind of to follow in order to be categorized as a year-round school. But some really wonderful things, like having, you know, a period of time, let's just say one option, 9 weeks on, 3 weeks off. Those 3 weeks, 2 of those weeks can be remediation and enrichment. They can be time for kids to still be on campus, so it'd still be family friendly. Kids would still be getting food, you know, still all of those things that we care about and we care about our community. Staff can be making additional dollars. They count toward different kinds of funding, and we still have time off for rejuvenation. So just something to chew on a little bit, because every time we talk about calendar, I get, when are we gonna start our strategic plan piece? The core committee that wrote that or that approved it from the community, I don't know how many people were there, lots. They wanted to put this on the starting block right out of the gate.
The core team?
Year one, yes, the
Yeah,
core team.
35 people, yeah.
Those were parents, business members, some staff, some students. They wanted it to be year one. And we've just kind of pushed it back there to start that conversation. So that's just the one thing I would throw out there, that some people like the down and dirty, get in, get out kind of approach. But knowing that most of our staff are here for 6 weeks in the summer as well, it would not be that different for them, but would give additional income and more time for our families to be connected to the community. So.
Could you present that calendar?
That's what I was gonna say too.
What's that?
Could we get a calendar presented?
You know, if,
Could we bring it or put something on the agenda?
Well, definitely, I mean, and again,
Not for
it's,
next year.
if you go traditional, it'd be a 45-15, you know, 45 days on, 15 days off. And that,
I've seen some calendars.
I think if, you know, if there's any district that's has some momentum to do it, is this one, because of the large number. You know, we have almost 1,000 kids in summer school, which, you know, I mean, we're year round right now, but if you're, you know, we do have it as a result statement in the strategic plan, that it hasn't been on one of the priority pieces yet, but it's there. So, you know, we could, you know,
There's more than just one way to look at that,
Yes.
though. And so I think it'd be nice to have presented to us a variety of options, not just the 45-15. There's a lot, and there's a lot of ways to phase it in. And I think if we're gonna have it be discussion, it should be put on some work sessions where it's just, we present it and then the community can see it, you know, and we can talk about it. This has to be a process. Yeah.
And that's how it's worded in the strategic plan as well, just start the conversation, because it is a mind shift. It's a different way of thinking, it impacts people differently. There's a lot of misunderstanding about it. There's a lot of really great things about it. And we've got a staff who's been asking, I'm not saying 100%, but the 44 people I worked with who wrote that part of this action plan, that's 44 of our campus people. The first time we put it in front of the staff, there was a gag, like, and then it was, wait a minute, and we explained it, and then it was, you know, it kind of just, it takes time. Like you said, it is a process, and why would we do it? What's the rationale behind it? You know, how would that impact athletics? How does that impact, you know, there's a lot of parts of it. But it's just something to start kind of chewing on a little bit. As we know better, we should do better. And we know that taking off in the summer is not good for the mental, physical health of many of our kids. It's a burden to some of our parents. And also to our educators, who we know need to also be cared for.
So is next month for a workshop session too soon?
Maybe.
You tell us.
Yeah.
let us talk at the administrative table and see
Yeah.
what we can.
We'd like to hear it, so.
Okay.
But I'd
But
also
overtime
like-
with many options.
Yes.
And I'd like to know what impact that would have on the funding, because we get a significant amount of funding from summer school. And what would be the impact on that?
All right, great.
Vote on it?
Yeah, we need
We need to approve?
Well, we don't have anything on
The
here saying
1920
that,
calendar.
but there's
or we
nothing.
put it on the 25th, but.
Yeah,
Put it on the business.
you can, we can do it, it just isn't noted here, so.
Put it on the consent agenda.
Does it change anything for you? I mean,
No.
okay.
Just so we know what to work, we know what we're working for, and the sooner we get to publish, the better.
So just general consensus, everyone supports that calendar as presented?
Yeah.
All right, I'm sorry, Bob, you had a question? You wanna make a motion? You sure can.
No, that's
No,
fine.
let's just
I'll
move
wait.
on to the
This is
next one.
All right.
Thing, please.
We're rolling into the policies. Hey, covers the 1,000 series. I believe there were 6 of them? Seven. The 7th one has one question in it that I saw that needed an amount, and I, for the.
Was that the conflict of interest?
Yes. So, we'll take 9A. Is anyone interested in making a motion so that we can discuss or make any changes there
Do we need to make a motion to discuss?
to approve them?
Well, they're not on to be approved, they're just.
This is the first reading.
This is
Right.
first
Okay, that's right.
So which one do you want to start with? You want to start with that last one you just
That was
said?
the only one that really
Conflict
had
of
a
interest?
great thing, yeah.
Well, there was a couple things there. There was the value amount and then, what type of disciplinary actions were on there also, which basically progressive verbal warning, suspension, termination would fit in there.
So does anyone have any strong opinions that they wanna voice on this? Should I have them open? There.
We have to come up with a dollar amount?
Mm-hmm.
I was
Yeah.
surprised by that too.
$100.
No, I
$100.
That's a lot.
I think
I would
that's a
go
lot
there.
too.
I'd go-
$5.
It's usually, okay,
$50.
make it like 10 or 20.
25.
I would
Yeah,
say,
I would say 10 or
just off the top of my head, I
20.
would say 25, but that's,
I'll go
Okay,
with
25.
I'm good with 25. It's usually a plus.
Perfect. I love it.
I was told, you know, a bottle of wine is not a good idea, and that's a bottle of wine, so I would put a lower amount in there, but.
$9.99.
I don't care. I was just thinking of,
Yeah.
if, you know, if someone buys lunch sometime that, you know,
Yeah, I thought
you
of
know,
that too.
I wasn't.
It's like $5
Pick a
at
number,
the counter.
pick a.
Okay,
$5 at my school.
Yeah. $5.
Is it?
Well, that's the state over there, I think, is pretty tight,
Do you wanna
it's
make
pretty
it
regulated.
20 or-
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
gift law over there.
I don't care at all.
No, but that's the gift law in Minnesota, it's $5
Yeah,
max.
okay, so what do you guys wanna do?
$20.
20
20.
bucks, all right, go
20 it is,
I like 20.
all right, good. And then you said there's another spot in there that you want some clarity on?
Well, it was just, there's a, you know, for violating this, in certain school districts, disciplinary actions, which would be just going along with progressive discipline, verbal warning, suspension, termination.
Where are you? Because we don't have that.
That's a different, you got a different format than, when Tasia printed these out for me, it's on the, like the third to last paragraph.
Same
Yeah, you know what, I'm sorry.
conflict of interest policy number? Or do you want?
Yeah, it's the,
Where is that in-
1130 policy.
Oh,
11:30?
1130
Yeah, you're
conflict
right.
of interest.
Okay, that's this one.
And it's like the third from the last paragraph, but see, the ones that I have in hand are,
We have
I'm
to-
seeing now is different than,
Ours just says,
We have to check
will be
these
subject to
boxes.
disciplinary actions, period.
yeah, let's see here, this is defining what the disciplinary action is. So let's just leave it, the only one you had is the dollar amount, let's leave it there and I'll straighten this out, because I worked off a different, I worked off of
Is
Neola's
that the same policy?
sheet.
Or is that the, oh, that's the job description. There's, I didn't catch this one either though, under, B1, am I needed to make a selection there? They've got those 2 parentheses and I'm not, I thought the green made sense, but now I'm seeing there's a parenthesis there. What does it ask?
Under B1,
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, you do, are we saying unless the provision of services is arranged, blah, 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 or the service is not provided to students enrolled?
You can have both.
That's what I read it as, but now I'm seeing an or there. Do we want to have both?
I think we do.
I thought so too.
So you're on B1.
B1,
Yes.
so instead of that parentheses or, I read it as an and.
So aside the students.
But
Well, I think
We can
it's
keep
a
it as or, we just don't
I would
have
say-
parentheses, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
okay. So we're not choosing
No,
that,
just-
they can choose.
Mhm.
All right. So, any others? You had one there. What was the one you
No,
had?
that's the next policy and job descriptions. Making sure.
Previous one,
Our
okay.
support staff's not drunk.
What you want to take now, job descriptions?
Yep, the previous one, 1400.
Okay, and what was your,
Well, I'm glad you brought this one up because all of these policies are in the 1000s. So they're supposed to be addressing administrators. And a couple of this one threw in support staff, and I think it's by accident because we have a
Usually
policy
there's one for each,
in the
yeah.
4000s regarding this. And there's another policy, but we can just, let's just talk about 1400 right now.
That'd be awesome.
So, if I'm understanding you correctly, Lori, the support staff really shouldn't be in this
No,
one? Because this is
No,
specific
no.
for administration,
So
so
that-
they
Right.
might want to review this policy. It may be a combination of a couple.
And I
I
already,
don't understand why you have to list. Why wouldn't it just be all employees can't come to work?
I wondered
because
that too.
Neola has
Jacked up.
administrators in the
Categories.
thousands, professional in the 3000s, and
Yeah.
support staff in the 4000s.
Okay.
just the
So
way they
we
do
have
it?
duplicates, almost every
That's
policy we have in the
you're right.
3000s is duplicated in the 4000s.
So knowing
When we
that,
have so many.
it's a lot less than we used to
So
have.
it makes it easy then.
We can make this pretty uniform. Do we want either of those, and then she knows those go in all three of those sections? Each staff member's job description shall contain the following provisions. The employee shall remain free of. Yes, I think that should be in all of them.
It is.
So-
Already.
And so then we know that that stays, and she's got it in green, so that was my assumption, she's keeping it.
No, you'd get it out of this one because that stuff in green is about support staff.
But I'm saying it should be about all staff, and
But-
take out the word support staff.
It already says that up above.
So-
Each job description shall contain, and because this is a 1000 policy, it's referring only to administrators.
So
So that
Neola
verbiage,
messed it up.
well, yeah, or we've got a crossover, which
Is it
can
in
happen.
compliance with the 4,000?
However, there is another word here that should be fixed.
What's that?
That part that you
You
were
got a good
reading, the
copy up
employee
here.
shall
Okay,
remain free
Yes.
of any alcohol, it says, or illegal substance. And then it refers to another policy. That word illegal should be controlled. Controlled substance.
I'm good with that.
Yeah.
Man, we should get so.
But maybe those green parts are in here because it's telling the district, the administrators, that they're supposed to make sure that these changes are in their policies. Or their job descriptions, sorry.
The green areas are always Neola's recommendations. Or options for us to,
So that, somebody kind of mixed the two together, that's how it looks in this particular one.
So I
Otherwise,
have
the rest of it-
two more corrections
On
to
this
this
particular
policy.
one, okay.
In the first paragraph, we're supposed to fill in a blank about where these job descriptions are
Doesn't
maintained.
say board members can't come to board meetings.
I see the empty spot behind
Does that
maintained.
does it?
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's supposed to
Yeah.
be,
Because I think
I think all of our other policies say in the district office.
Yeah.
Is that, do you agree, Mark?
yeah.
I think so
It is.
too.
And then the last one is on, if you're looking on your computer, I don't know if you see it as pages, but if you do, it's the second to last paragraph. They're talking about support staff again. They filled in green.
Yeah.
I think just get rid of that green and end the sentence after descriptions.
Sure.
Yep.
Yes, good. Did you catch that one? Second paragraph from the bottom on
Yeah, no,
the first page.
I see it, I'm
But
just
where it
working
says from time to time,
Yep,
Yep.
yep.
so we're striking
The last
for
four
support
is
staff?
It's
Support
all
staff, yeah.
just ended after description.
But isn't it just saying there that the board recognizes that the district administrator may find it necessary to review those job descriptions?
Revise the job descriptions for administrators, because this is a 1,000 policy.
But it can be, if you stop it after descriptions, it's not specific, because this is
Or
1,000.
in the administrative policies,
Yeah.
you're giving the district administrator
You're
the
giving
right
him-
to adjust those without coming to the board,
Just support staff
Right.
positions, not,
administrative positions.
or,
If you
And that's the way I read it.
yeah.
But we have that line in every administrative contract as well.
Yeah, it is.
So that's why I think it's referring to administrators.
I think so too, because you want to be able to move them where they're needed.
Well, we can question it.
And we have
That's why
this
it's
same
a-
policy in the 3,000s and the 4,000s.
Any others on this one?
It talks about
You got-
illegal substance again, right above the green in quotes.
Yeah, but we're taking that green stuff out.
No, but in
Where?
the quotes right above it. So each job description shall contain the following provision.
That's where I was talking about changing it from illegal to controlled.
And you're saying we're completely undoing the green one below
And then
it?
taking the
And
green
we're
one out.
taking everything with the green
Okay.
out.
I thought you were talking about the green one.
And why are we doing illegal to control?
Because controlled means can be
Right,
prescription drugs.
right.
So that doesn't make sense to me as a
Right.
human being
So it
in
can
my
be
50s.
illegal.
Opioids.
Right.
Well, I guess what
No,
it
I-
made me think
Well,
of
that-
is
No,
our marijuana. I
Because
guess where I was
on my prescription.
Yeah, but there, it
Yeah,
talks
fentanyl,
about
that's the
prescription.
first one.
It
In
talks
the-
about prescription someplace else, that prescriptions aren't included.
Any alcohol but if we keep illegal in there,
Just, illegal is what they're suggesting. I'm going with what they're
It
suggesting.
says controlled in other areas.
It says
I
controlled
believe
in
you,
the
but-
policies.
Is the first paragraph
so can you
the
revisit
end?
them on that one?
Last
Just the
sentence.
whole thing goes back to,
Sorry, thank you.
There's another
Are you
policy.
still
about
bothered by that,
this
Trish?
That,
When I look up controlled substance, it says anything that's under government regulation, including prescriptions. So if to be redefined somewhere else seems kind of silly, but if that's, I didn't notice that, so 2 thumbs up.
You can bring your prescription.
Thank you.
yes, it
Can I
says
have that in my
that.
job
Not
description?
really. It's probably in
You
there.
have to list everyone's
Yeah.
prescriptions that are.
Well, I think it should be the same in all the policies, so if you
It-
can
it
find
draws
it that way in
attention to
other
that.
policies, I'll believe you.
In control.
Yeah.
It's in 3122. I
Okay.
looked it up already.
So we need to revisit that
We need to make sure
terminology
they're
in
all
of
have the
them.
same language.
Yeah.
Well, this is kind of on Neola, because they're
Yeah, it is.
supposed to be the.
Yeah, you're right. So we need to find out from them, which
Mhm.
one should it be? Which one? Because it doesn't
Well,
sound
I
like it should be controlled.
Talked to Stu about these, and he thinks I'm right, and that he's bringing them back to Neola,
So we'll let them sort it out.
and that won't be until June.
How much did we pay them?
Yeah, let them sort it out.
Is the last sentence of the very first paragraph complete?
In the district office, we talked about that just a minute ago.
Is that what you meant?
Okay.
Mhm, yep. All right, so now we're on to, any others? Are there any others that,
We gotta do the voting one.
No.
Pick one
yeah,
of
we aren't
those.
there yet. We'll do
Oh,
that
sorry.
next.
1422.
My question with that is, do we need to name, for instance, this got Shannon's struck out and Abby his name,
It's Abby and Trent.
right? Can it just be Director of Pupil Services?
I think we need a name.
You do need a
Yeah, I remember
specific
when it
name.
was first set up, we had to name somebody specifically.
However, I think it would be nice if Trent's title matched what's on our district website for his title.
Yeah, you're right.
So could that be changed, please?
Which one?
What's your title?
Under Trent's,
Yeah, but the district website or the one here?
which one should it be? Which one should be corrected?
What are you calling yourself
Head-
nowadays?
What is it on
head-
the
head
district
poo-
website?
Grand Poobah? I mean, what does it say?
By contract, it should say assistant principal / activities director.
Then
So
the
that's what the
website
website
needs to
should
be
say.
changed.
Assistant
So the
Principal
website
Activities.
There's inconsistencies all over the place.
Well,
So
we
let's-
just found one, so
What do you
let's
wanna
fix
be?
that one.
It should be what it says here.
On the website, it
The
says
website needs to be-
associate principal
Well,
and
whatever
athletic
your
director.
contract says is what we'll put on there.
Perfect, great. Thanks for clearing that up for us. All right, any others?
Not on this, oh, yeah, there is one more.
Which one?
On this same policy. There's, the end of a sentence is missing. It's on the last full page of writing. It's the first paragraph right under education and training. That last line, it says all training as well as all information provided regarding the board's policy and discrimination in general. That should be a comma, and the sentence is supposed to end with will be age and content appropriate.
Now, how did you find out that that was there before?
I called Stu and I asked him all my questions.
Okay.
Well, this is, so, okay, so I'm dealing, it has that in mind, but I'm dealing with a
Not
different
in
copy
ours.
than yours.
And on our website, our current policy has the same error.
This is 1422, this paragraph under education and training.
The stuff I'm working off, how's it
Okay.
corrected here? So,
Tomorrow, we can maybe meet with Keisha and go through. Give it a chance.
And I read that as the continuation of the previous sentence, so it's interesting.
well, yeah,
Yeah,
she's right, my
yeah.
copy has that in
I
there
heard you
already,
say
but I'm
that.
dealing with a different copy than the ones that are on the agenda.
All right. So, anything else, did you have something on 1460 you wanted to address?
Do we make all candidates submit to an examination?
Yep,
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, I don't know.
All candidates.
well, not candidates, employee.
I mean,
Once they've
offered.
accepted an offer.
Yeah.
Got it.
Any others?
Really?
In the thousands.
A different policy.
Yep.
1623.
Okay.
On the second page,
Yeah,
under the names of the compliance officers,
right.
it says the names, titles, and contact information of these individuals will be published annually, and it gives an A and a B. In our policy 1422, it says the only place we're gonna publish it is on the school district's website,
So they should be consistent.
so we should get rid of A here.
Okay,
I think, I don't know, what do you guys think?
I'd say put it in both,
I'll
I-
see it
I'll
in the-
run it.
but be the
Handbooks.
same in both
And-
policies.
And mine has different options here. It says staff handbooks, annual report, school district website, individual schools website, and the school district calendar.
Wow.
And it's in our handbooks.
Yeah,
It's in the
So-
handbook.
I wonder if it
I
should
think
stay
that's
in
kind
there.
of important to have it in the handbook.
So then we should change policy 1422 to
Yeah.
match, so it matches.
Can you read those 5 off again, please?
It says, select more than one option. Staff handbooks, school district annual report to the public, school district's website, each individual school's website, and in the school district calendar.
And I think the reason we only put it on the school district website was so we didn't have to change the names every time someone changed position.
I like it just on the handbooks and on the website. I think
This says in the
Staff.
staff handbooks, do we make sure?
the people handbooks
This
is,
student and staff?
It should be in the staff handbook.
That's all?
It should be.
And on the school
No,
district's
I'm
website,
saying,
Correct.
should you edit?
then we need to add that to 1422.
but you're right, do we want it in that handbook too? The one that goes to
In the student
families?
handbooks?
Do you want it in the one that
The
goes to the
employee
families?
handbook.
Just
But
the
you don't want it in
employee-
the family
Well-
handbook too?
That's not one of the, actually, it's not one of the choices here. We don't have to do that.
Okay,
So,
all
It's
right.
currently in them though.
but if you do the website and the handbook,
That's fine.
Staff handbook you're talking.
correct.
Did you have
Oh, yeah.
any others?
Employment. Yep, just.
There's another one, 1630.01. And it's the same problem as the one Bob pointed out where the support staff were added in by accident. This one has a whole section added in, and Stu says he thinks it's by accident, something got messed up. There's an entire paragraph about instructional staff that shouldn't be there.
I'm glad you talked to him directly because he probably needs to talk with somebody that's doing some of his editing.
Yeah, maybe
Okay.
call Stu and
So
tell him
you
what
wanna
you're
remember
saying.
again,
Money.
this? 1, 2, 3,
Because this
4.
is really
The fifth
Extra part of
budget
that
page.
45
That's what we
We're
pay
paying
them for,
it.
yes.
Yep.
And it's under the heading manner in which leave can be taken. And it's right before the other big
Yeah,
heading,
anybody named
coordinating
Stu.
leaves. Do you see that whole section
Oh,
about
where it says
instructional
instructional
staff?
staff
Right,
members?
Carson.
And
Yeah,
A
name's
and B,
Stu,
all
right.
that has to do with instructional staff.
Name's Stu and I breed dogs, you wanna buy one?
There's something else in this policy though that we should talk about. And it's on the bottom of the second page, and it has to do with amount of leave available. Because we have some options here, but it wasn't shown to us that we do. Right now, our policy states that staff is entitled to a total of 12 work weeks of leave in a calendar year. And we could change that to fiscal year, so it went with the school year, July 1st to June 30th.
So if you have somebody who takes a leave in October, after the school year started, they could continue that leave into they could take a new leave in January.
So they could actually, it would be possible, the way we have our policies written now, it's possible a staff member could take 24 weeks of
During the school
FMLA
year.
in one school year.
I think we do want it to go with the fiscal year, with the school year.
It's been the calendar year.
It has
Right.
been.
And we've talked about it before.
Yeah.
But couldn't they do the same thing?
But it's just,
No,
it's,
it'd be 12 weeks in a fiscal year.
There are other choices though.
But you're right, they still are able to get the same thing,
Yeah, if it's,
yeah. You know,
What do you mean?
because they could tie it to the end of one school year and the beginning of the next, so either way, they could still take whatever they need. You know, even if we move it to fiscal year, they still can do 24 in 1 year's time.
That would be one calendar year, not one
Right.
school year, and I think there's a big difference.
Well, you have the summer months to contend with, unless we go with all year.
Help me understand what is the.
Have we had a problem with it the way it's been?
we dealt with a situation.
Very recent.
What do you say is the biggest, most notable
Well, I
difference?
just think that it's more disruptive to our students.
Okay, to have someone out that
If we have
long.
it in a calendar year rather than in a fiscal year. Because if it's in a calendar year, you could have one
The finish.
class of kids who has their teacher gone for 24 weeks of the school year.
But then
And
you'd be
if you go by
impacting two.
fiscal year,
How does it say family medical leave taken under this policy may be covered by federal
Cause it's FMLA.
lay?
Oh,
Yeah, I
'cause
know it is.
it can be state.
So what is it,
so, I'm sorry.
you know, yeah, so we have to abide by that, so,
We have to give 12 weeks, but we have options on how you can spread it out. It can be a calendar year, it can be a fiscal year. It could be 12 months for each employee. So for example, if I started medical leave
Right.
in March, my year would go from March 1st to February 28th. And so it could be different for every employee, that's another option. And I think there were 4 options, and they're not listed here for us
What
to
have you
see.
seen, Mark?
well, then,
I thought there was only 2 options.
There's fiscal year, calendar year,
It's
rolling
rolling.
by employee, each individual employee.
Rolling calendar is the term you're looking for.
And then there was a 4th one, do you know what it is, Jody?
I don't, I think that a business can like name their own time frame.
That might have been it.
For like tax season
Yeah,
or.
you can like have a specific start and end date. If I'm a business that maybe my fiscal year starts October 1, you know, like you can name that. So if you look at like, and I'm sorry I'm speaking,
No.
but I do the FMLA processing. If you look at the different options under the federal guideline, it does list all of that out. Historically, Somerset has done calendar year.
Right.
Is there any reason why?
I don't
Not
know
that
why.
I can think of.
Okay.
What have you seen before?
Well, either or, calendar or fiscal, those are the 2 most prominent ones out there.
From what I've heard attorneys speak on, the rolling calendar where it's specific to each employee becomes a very difficult tracking process for
I can
our
imagine it would.
human resource department.
Yeah.
Because each person is, you know, a moving.
so we leave it alone, or we change it?
We can think on it and vote.
Yeah,
on
I
it.
mean, this is first reading, I mean, we can, if you want, we can take a look at what's the pluses and minuses of each one.
I like the idea of fiscal.
I did too, until I thought about, okay, if you do the way we are doing it, you'd be impacting 2 different groups of kids.
No, if you do it the way we are, you could be impacting one group of kids for 24 weeks. That's the way we're doing it now. We're
Calendar
doing it
year
by
right now?
calendar year.
But that could be 2 groups, your previous year's grade and then now this next year's grade. That's what I meant by it. So, whereas if it's fiscal, it's all gonna be one group of kids. Either way, it's not an ideal situation.
No, so you don't start and then stop, school gets out, and then someone goes back and takes
And
the benefit again?
summer months do not count
Right.
because they're not contracted
So
by
then
those
you're
dates.
technically, they
In
look at it
service,
like
if they
you're
have
off.
to be in service, if they're present,
Am I
they
correct?
count. If it's spring break where teachers aren't contracted, they don't count. So it becomes a very big mathematical, like you look at the contract days.
So I think fiscal would make more sense than for that reason too.
It's
Okay,
something
well,
to think about.
Yeah,
Yeah, just let me find out if there's any significant pluses or minuses.
Great.
to them. If we've been doing calendar, or excuse me,
Great.
the new calendar since anyone can remember, I'll find out why.
All right, are there any others?
That was it for me in the 1000s.
Great. Thank you, I hope those all make sense, they did to me.
Yeah, notes on that?
All right, then we will
Tasia
move on
can
to the next
contact
one.
me if she
Thanks,
has
Catherine, for bringing this forward. 9B, 0167.1, the voting.
Second option.
Are you,
Wait, where'd you go here? What are you?
We're
The
done with the
voting one.
1,000s, we're on to that.
did you do a copy of unrequested leaves? And so there's no questions on any of those last three? Okay,
Well,
just
that's
checking.
his
So,
physical exam and
Ooh,
requested
too late.
leave.
no, I missed that. I was like, okay.
So there wasn't anything on those two?
I
Okay.
didn't see anything.
Okay.
Get me back to my agenda, and we are B. What did you say, Bob? You said
Second
two.
option.
Is everybody good with that?
I
I don't
am.
even know which one.
As a matter of fact, would you like to vote on this because we've been talking about it for so long?
Make a
or
motion
wait?
to approve second option in the
Second.
voting, whatever series.
Great, sounds good. 0167-1, the option, second option there is the one we all support.
And I will second Bob's motion.
Okay, so that one is official then, is that what you're saying?
We need to vote.
But I mean, we're not gonna wait till the session, we'll just do it now? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that's the policy. Done deal, off the agenda. Anything else there? Did that make sense? I'm sorry, rolling us through. Okay, 4, topics for action tonight. May I have on 10A?
I'll make a motion for A and B.
Second.
Thank you, Bruce, thank you, Bob. Any questions on this? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Nice fast action, guys. On to the once around. Anything from Bruce?
Could you guys talk with, I guess probably Mr. Larson and Trent about how to get that in the curriculum somehow where it would fit, just for talking point?
I would sure like that.
What do you
too.
mean, how to get it in?
The strength and conditioning.
Into the curriculum, so
In the
more kids
curriculum,
have
so
access
we
to
can-
it.
My understanding is that it's already being used in 3 classes every day.
Yeah.
I think it's great. Okay, Katie, anything else, Bruce? I'm
Oh,
sorry.
oh, and then we got your budget too.
Katie?
I got nothing.
I'm wondering if we use teachers on call for contracting any subs?
No,
Or do
we don't. It's about a 20 to 29% increase in what we'd be doing now. And we checked it out.
And it made 0 difference in my,
Did it?
0. We were promised that it would solve all of our issues. 0. And we lost some of our good subs too that didn't wanna go through with it.
How'd it work in your
Okay.
district?
Yeah.
But it's a significant increase in cost. It's
Well,
at least 20%.
They promised a lot more than
If the
they
cost
presented.
brought results, you might consider it, but if
Right,
it didn't
but-
even bring results,
No,
forget it.
but we checked that out.
Full-time stuff.
Okay, did you have anything there, Bob?
Yes, pretty good.
Catherine?
No, I'm looking at this, the one we just approved on voting.
Yep.
Okay, so that would cover the
Remote access.
remote access.
Yes.
Okay, so we still don't have one. Oh, yes, no, I'm good. I'm good.
And the whole remote access thing is pretty easy in Wisconsin. Minnesota's much more regulated
Okay,
on what you have to do, and that's where I was coming from, but it's really,
yeah, I thought.
you're
this was
there,
pretty-
so
yeah,
you can remote in.
Yeah, and,
So now
I've been
what-
doing Zoom and it works really well. It's super easy and it can go right up on the smart board.
I like it too, it makes CISA a lot easier. Hoping they do it for
I mean, you really
Thursday,
feel like
too.
you're right at the meeting.
Yeah. So can we, you have to do a subscription to Zoom, so is somebody going to look into what we could do to facilitate that?
Tasia would be able to do that. It's super easy. It's like $125 for the elite updated version. It's like nothing. I actually have my own.
For a year?
Mhm, yeah.
And one thing that we might wanna do is invest in a device that would, it's clear communication from the person who's outside.
That's what Zoom does.
Does that do that over?
Yeah, you can
Right
do it
on
right
the
on your
web.
smart board
Does
and
it
you
do?
can dual
Okay,
screen it.
Super
So you
cool.
could still have your agenda
Okay, I
up
didn't
there
know
and
if
you
that
could
was
have,
Stupid.
you could have 4 board members on the screen if you want.
Yeah, it's very nice.
Okay.
Very convenient. All right, Lori?
Forecast analytics, but I'm not in a hurry.
Forecast analytics.
Or
The
Five
forecast-
cast?
forecast five or
Forecast 5, yeah.
Finecast or-
I've asked,
Easy for you to say.
But I'm not in a hurry.
no, I've
Because
asked Dave
with our
to,
focus
I've asked Dave to
budget,
prepare a
The
presentation on
referendum.
that.
Yes.
I've asked him to prepare a presentation on it.
Okay,
so.
going back to that, I agree with Lori. Our focus is on the supporting the information out, getting out the information in the referendum. Can we have a calendar as to when different meetings are so that we know ahead of time as to where we might
Mhm.
want to be a physical
Yeah,
body?
and Tasia's building that calendar right now, she's contacting people. We just had these sporting events come up, and that's another thing, some of these things may be changing due to weather. And I should have mentioned this before, but, you know, we're in tournament time, and sometimes we don't get the luxury of picking the dates. For example, we may have to have a game on this Wednesday if we get something canceled, which isn't ideal, but again, we don't have control over when we get into section play and that. So, again, you know, we're getting to the end here of the winter season.
We don't have control over it, but we can set a position. So Trent, I hope that you can reschedule avoiding Wednesday nights. I'm hoping that they can.
As best as possible. When it gets to WIA tournament play though,
But if
So
you
that's all
say
right.
your voice, at least they'll have heard it. We need to support the
Oh,
big
no, there's
communities
no
around
question
here.
there, but we have very little
I know, it's limited
leeway
time.
on this.
But if you say nothing, it's saying it's okay.
Sure.
All right, so you're putting together a calendar for tentative meetings and events?
Yes.
That sounds great. Anything else? If
No.
not, I would entertain a motion to go to item 12, adjourn into closed session.
So moved.
Thank you, Bob. And I will second that. Thank you guys for attending this evening. Yeah, quick run into the restroom. We are at 7:37.
Do we need to do a roll call vote for this?
I'm not sure, so let's do it just in case.
Kathy, is your car
Catherine?